and welcome to Temple Talk, Israel National Radio. Today, Lamed Menachem Av, the 30th and ultimate day of the month of Menachem Av. That is the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul, 5774. It's the first day of the 2-day new moon of the month of Elul,
The
August
ultimate
26th.
month.
The
ultimate month of the year.
The ultimate month, if you're counting from Tishrei. If you're counting from Tishrei, it's the last month of the year. If you're counting from Nisan, which is actually the biblical way of counting, then it's the 6th month. It's August 26th, 2014.
No argument there.
And this week, Parshat Shoftim. And we are beginning the month of Elul. And technically, during the month of Elul, every morning there's a custom prevalent amongst many congregations in Israel to sound the shofar as the ultimate red alert app, as the ultimate wake-up call to get us prepared for these coming days of awe. We're beginning now a 40-day period, 40 days of supernal goodwill and favorable judgment that begins with the month of Elul and goes through and including the awesome Day of Atonement, Yom Kippurim. And every day during the month of Elul we sound the shofar to get us into the groove, to get us into the mood, to prepare our hearts for the din, for the time of judgment before the ultimate judge, our Father in heaven. So really we begin that custom on the second day of Rosh Chodesh, which is technically the first day of Elul, but Yitzchak is permitting me to sound the shofar actually today as well, because after all, the program will be up for an entire week and you might be listening to it some other time.
It happens.
And we wouldn't want to hold you back from the opportunity of listening to the shofar. It's been a year, folks. Just give me a minute here. Yes, Yitzchak.
Yes. Whew. I'm awoke. I've been awakened.
As everybody remembers.
My eyes are wide open now. I'm wide awake. Let's do it. Let's start all over again. I'm wide awake now.
As everybody recalls, the month of Elul is a very special time. It is actually, like you mentioned, the last month of the year. It is the...
You gave me a hard time when I mentioned that.
What'd you say, Yitzchak?
I said you gave me a hard time when I mentioned that.
Oh, well, if you're counting from Tishrei, yeah. But it is the ultimate time for repairing our relationships, our relationship with Hashem, our relationship with each other. Most famously, the word Elul, which of course comes from the Babylonian exile, but it's actually referred to, I want you to know, Yitzchak, I don't know if you're aware of this.
Yeah.
The word Elul actually appears in the Torah, in the Tanakh. It appears in the book of Nehemiah, and it has a very important significance. It appears in the book of Nehemiah, and it's in chapter 6 and verse 15, where here we read, the wall was completed on the 25th of Elul, after 52 days.
That's a significant date.
And in fact, the next verse reads, it happened when all our enemies heard this and all the nations around us saw, they fell greatly in their own eyes, for they realized that this work was accomplished by our God.
That is so sweet.
So this is all about the returning exiles and the rebuilding of Jerusalem, the wall around Jerusalem.
Isn't that what we say all the time? If we just would rebuild Jerusalem, then all our enemies' faces would fall and they would walk away dejected. Isn't that what you and I always say?
I guess.
And the 25th of Elul, that's like the birthday of the world, isn't it?
It's actually the first day of creation.
Yeah,
right? Because
wow.
Because so that was the
Perfect
day that
timing.
later in history the wall around Jerusalem by the returnees was completed. The 25th of Elul, as you mentioned, is the first day of the 7 days of creation, because Rosh Hashanah, the last day of creation, is the birthday of Adam, but Adam was Adam was the last
6 days later.
last thing to be created. So Elul, as everybody knows, in addition to what we just pointed out, that the name is actually mentioned in the book of Nehemiah, in Song of Songs, chapter 6 and verse 3, we read, Ani ledodi v'dodi li. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. That is the most famous acronym that describes the whole dynamic of the month of Elul, which is based not on a verse that we find somewhere else, but on a verse that we find in Song of Songs, which is a beautiful and apropos metaphor, since the whole concept of the Song of Songs is that it bespeaks, on a spiritual level, that is, through a physical metaphor, it bespeaks the intimacy between God and his people. And that's what's really going on there. That's what it is an allusion to, that can only be understood. In other words, the level of closeness that we have, that we really should be feeling with God, can only be understood for a physical person through the metaphor of man and wife. And that's what we aspire to in our relationship with God. And unfortunately, throughout the course of the year, the relationship can be strained. It can become rocky. There can be misunderstandings. And that's what the month of Elul is all about. It's about looking to get realigned and looking for the maximum in our spiritual relationship with Hashem, as well as in our relationship with others. But this is an opportunity, as usual, to point out a key concept in Torah study, in the philosophy of a Torah consciousness, and we can't overemphasize this. And it comes up so often in our line of work, which is, that is to say, the concept of the responsibility of the rebuilding of the Holy Temple being on our shoulders, not on God's shoulders, but that God expects us to rebuild the temple. So too, everything in a Torah consciousness is focused on man making the first move, on man making a step, taking one small step for God, showing that we haven't forgotten, giving God a sign of life, and then a miracle happens. That's the famous story of Nachshon, the son of Aminadab, that we always talk about, that when he stepped into the water, then the sea split. We have to do our best, and then God, he reveals himself in the most tremendous way. But why should he, if we don't show any sign of life? And so too, in the beautiful verse, Ani ledodi v'dodi li, I am to my beloved and my beloved is to me, which is the ultimate expression of the love between God and his people, in Song of Songs chapter 6 and verse 3, what's going on in that verse is Ani ledodi, I am to my beloved, and then my beloved is to me. In other words, if I will show that I am to my beloved, I am committed to him, that I am willing to make that covenant and to take that commitment, then my beloved is to me. But I want you to know that there's also several other allusions, just like Ani ledodi v'dodi li from Song of Songs. There are several other allusions throughout the Torah, the Tanakh, regarding the concept of Elul. And, for example, in the Scroll of Esther, everybody knows that part of the story of Purim and part of the commandment of the day of Purim is matanot le'evyonim. I know I'm asking you to do a switch now and get thinking about Adar for a minute in the beginning of Elul.
That's the ultimate month of the year, if you count from Nisan.
I wasn't thinking about that. But part of the mitzvot, part of the special commandments of the day that was instituted by Mordechai and Esther to celebrate the camaraderie and the unity that came into effect through Purim, part of it is matanot le'evyonim, which means the sending of gifts to poor people. And the verse actually says, matanot le'evyonim ish l'reyehu. And that actually spells out Elul. And that is an allusion to the fact that during this time we also seek to rectify our relationships with others. And again, when it comes to our relationship with Hashem, another verse that is an allusion to Elul, Yitzchak, is in our own book of Deuteronomy, but in a few weeks we'll be reading it in Parshat Nitzavim.
Mm-hmm.
In chapter 30, we read, in chapter 30 and verse 6 of Parshat Nitzavim, it says, Hashem your God will circumcise your heart and the heart of your offspring, to love Hashem your God with all your heart and with all your soul, that you may live. And that reads in Hebrew, Umal Hashem Elokecha et levavecha v'et levav zarecha. And the first letter of the Hebrew words, et levavecha v'et levav zarecha, spells out Elul.
Mm-hmm.
This
That's
is
your hearts and the hearts of your
children, exactly. And of course, the interpretation of what we call Rashi Tevot, which is the abbreviations of a word that's formed by the first letter of each word, and Sofi Tevot, which is the acronym formed by the last letters. This is one of the interpretations of our sages throughout the Torah. And this is an allusion, the fact that these letters spell out clearly in a straightforward manner the word Elul, to circumcise your hearts and the hearts of your children, meaning, again, that this is a time, a special time with a special predisposed nature to spiritual fixing and to working out the themes that have been holding us back from a fuller relationship with Hashem. And as we're fond of quoting, statement that was actually attributed to the first Rebbe of Chabad, the Alter Rav, who said that the concept of Elul is Hamelech Basadeh, that the king is in the field, that Hashem is so close even to the common man without any special preparation, without having to go into any special posture. A person can reach out during this month, and Hashem is right there and making himself, as it were, extra close to hear our supplications. And all these themes work together with that which we find in all the themes that we find expressed in the beautiful chapter of Psalms, chapter 27, to David, the David Hashem Ori V'ishi. God is my light and my salvation. This is a special psalm that is recited by many congregations twice daily, every day during the month of Elul, because many of the themes in that chapter also correspond to the yearnings and to the spiritual aspiration of the month of Elul. But simply put, what it really all boils down to, I think, is that we are looking for the maximum in our lives. You know, this is also like a time traditionally of resolutions, right? But it's not like in the secular world, you know, the idea of a New Year's resolution. You know, a New Year's resolution, say I want to lose some weight, or let's say whatever, even if I want to be a better person. How New Year's resolutions, I think, are thought about and accepted and convened and worked on in the Torah world is completely different. But let's compare. You know, let's say that I want to do something comparable to losing weight. Let's say that I want to accomplish something by losing some of the weight on my soul, that I want to fix something that's been holding me back from a fuller life, from a fuller relationship with God, with my loved ones, with the world around me, from accomplishing more, from aligning myself more with divine purpose. I want to actually go for the maximum. That's what this month is all about. And there are many different customs and different traditions regarding special types of devotion, special types of attention to various character traits, and all sorts of ways that people will redouble their efforts during this month of Elul to try and get the maximum out of life. It's like before coming to a full stop, which is like Rosh Hashanah, we're like the brakes are screeching to a halt during the month of Elul, and we're saying, "Whoa, wait a minute here. Let's take a close look at who we've been the past year, what we want to be, what we have accomplished and what we haven't, and what we are afraid to. And let's prepare ourselves for this awesome, incredible rendezvous of the high holy days of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur." And just about always, I won't say always, but I think it is actually always, the week of Rosh Chodesh Elul falls out in the Torah portion of Shoftim, this week's Torah portion, which begins in Sefer Devarim, in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16 and verse 18, and it begins with the words, "Judges and officers shall you appoint in all your gates, which Hashem your God gives you for your tribes. and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. And there are many very interesting and apropos commandments that Moshe instructs the people in this week's Torah portion. Now, on a level of allegory, the way the great Balei Musar, those rabbis that deal with ethical discourse and with the whole concept of working on the character traits and becoming a better person, there's a tradition that relates that when Hashem says in this week's Torah portion, to appoint judges and officers in all your gates, it can be interpreted very meaningly on a symbolic level for the month of Elul, because the month of Elul, again, since it's about like taking spiritual stock, and taking a good look at what we've been doing, what we've been into, and trying to fix it, and trying to chastise ourselves and improve. So it's like appoint judges and officers for yourselves in all your gates, meaning like in your gates to the outside world, in your orifices. If you would place judges and officers at the gates of your eyes and your ears and your mouth, to watch what goes in and out, to watch what you see, and to watch how you speak, and to watch what you hear and how you respond. That's like on a spiritual level, on an ethical level, the call of Elul. So it corresponds to Shoftim because it's about this time of, deep self-introspection and self-judgment. And the more we judge ourselves, the more we save ourselves a harsh judgment by trying to examine ourselves and deal with it. However, I want to say that in the context of everything going on all around us, everything that we've been describing until now works not only on an individual level, but also on the national level. So first of all, I'll be happy just for the simple interpretation of this verse. Because let's say that you can, doresh, that you can exposit this verse to be talking about, be careful what you say during the month of Elul, be careful what you think, be careful what you look at, nothing improper, be careful how you speak. That's certainly true, but halavai, if only we would also conform to the simple interpretation of this verse, which is talking about God-fearing judges and officers shall you appoint in all your cities, and they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. You shall not pervert judgment. In other words, the basis of our society, the Sanhedrin, at a Torah-based government wherein the standard of measure is Torah. And we're going to see that later in the Parsha when we're talking about the king. When you come to the land that Hashem your God gives you and possess it and settle in it, you'll say, I'd like a king over myself, like all the other nations. Okay, set a king over yourselves, who Hashem your God shall choose. And then look and see that this king, he writes for himself 2 Torahs, 2 Torah scrolls. One of them he carries around with him his entire life, and he's constantly reading from it. That's the king in Israel. So I'm saying, on the individual level, we're all very concerned about getting things right in our lives and really preparing ourselves for the time of the new year, the time of judgment, the time for a fresh start, the time when we become like completely new people, when we'll be inscribed, God willing, in the book of life. But also, on the national level, this is exactly what we need to strive for. And just like Elul is about, on the individual level, going for the maximum and getting things right, this is an opportunity also for the whole nation to go for the maximum and to get things right. And last week, it's I don't know how to describe this. We talked about the Parsha, and I wanted to very, very pithily and quickly and succinctly sum up what was going on with Operation Protective Edge. And the problem with pre-recording a program that's a once-a-week program is that at one point you have to record it and talk about what we know until this point. So we issued a very brief summary about the ceasefire that was about to go into effect. That very day, the ceasefire basically fell apart, and since then, Yitzchak, how many hundreds of missiles have been fired against us? I think, I mean, I'm
100
confused
today.
already by the statistics. I read about 150 since last night. In any event, once again, as we go to the microphone today, on the last day of the month of Av, the first day of Rosh Chodesh Elul, we're talking about an Egyptian brokered ceasefire that Hamas apparently accepts, but Israel hasn't responded yet. And they're talking about a month-long truce. And you know what? This to me is so the opposite of what Parshat Shoftim is all about, and what the whole concept of Elul is all about. Because what is Elul all about? It's about going for the gusto of our experience, our spiritual life, the fact that we're alive, why Hashem created us, and getting back to a point where we are never going to break our consciousness again. That's the resolution, that we're not going to have a disconnect, that we're going to be the best that we can be.
It's not a 1 month commitment.
Exactly, yafeh. Exactly. It's not a truce for a month. We want to get back. And here's
It's not 3 weeks, of mourning for the temple and then going about your business either. It's not a 3-week commitment either. It's forever.
And you and I have been talking about the fact that, and so many people are saying this, and pardon me, but there's a big problem here. And the problem is we seem to be afraid of winning. We're just resigned to the fact that we simply can't win. We can't do it the way it's supposed to be done. For whatever reason, whether it's international pressure or I don't know what, we're afraid of success. And therefore, all we're trying to do here is, like Netanyahu keeps saying, quiet will be met with quiet. And we're trying to restore quiet and calm. And what we're looking for here, apparently, is containment, as opposed to destroying Hamas. Of course, the situation is very, very complex. After all, Gaza is Eretz Israel, and we shouldn't have left in the first place. So I understand there's a lot of issues that have to be dealt with. But the fact is, the call of Elul is about doing it right. The call of Elul isn't about containment or about quiet. It's about the maximum that we could be. And if we would take that same aspiration that we are all striving for on the individual level in this month of Elul that is now upon us, the call of the shofar, and apply it to the nation and the nation's responsibility and the situation in which we find ourselves right now, then surely we could transform this time of Elul truly into a time of really making things right, realigning ourselves completely with Hashem, with our divine purpose as a nation here in the land of Israel. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to be not just to contain and to be quiet, but to be victorious in battle. Stay with us. Temple Talk.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk Israel, National Radio, UniversalTorah.com, the Temple Institute's very own YouTube channel. Today is Rosh Chodesh Elul. Actually, as the Rabbi pointed out earlier, it's the 30th day of the month of Av, but is the first day of the 2-day celebration of Rosh Chodesh Elul. The year is 5774, last month of 5774, and in the secular world, or in the secular reference to time, it's the 26th day of August, 2014. And Rabbi, you mentioned a lot of things. You covered a lot of ground. You mentioned personal responsibility, as per the allegory of the gates, being our eyes and our ears and our mouth, and what goes in and what comes out. You mentioned national responsibility, as it is referred to in the Parashat, the appointing of a king. I think at the end of the Parashat, when we learn about the Egla Arufa, about the what do we call the Egla at the end of the Parashat? There's an English. When a person is found,
the axed heifer.
The axed heifer. When a person is found outside the borders of a town, sort of in the wilderness between two towns, and it describes how we have to take responsibility for it as community. So we have the individual, we have the national, we have the community. It's all part of Elul. And also, I'd like to say this Elul is the last month of preparation, getting ready, preparation as in studying about, and preparation as in physically getting ready for the Shmita year, the sabbatical year, which is coming up, which begins with the new year on Tishrei. And that really is a tremendous responsibility that's to the land. And of course, as we know, that responsibility, the fulfillment of that responsibility guarantees our place here in the land of Israel, because if we are negligent of the laws concerning the Shmita and treating with proper respect this land that belongs to God and that He allows us to live in, then we are really jeopardizing our future here. That's what I got to say about that. And while I still have the mic, Rabbi, I'm just going to say something because it has to be said sooner or later. You know, I have to make reference to our Indiegogo campaign, and he's rolled his eyes. There you go. Indiegogo campaign, which is now entering its second month. It's a 2-month campaign. As you know, it's to raise funds for the continued preparation of architectural plans for the Holy Temple. And we have almost completed the first month of our campaign, and we've had over 500 individual donors, and we are very close to $50,000 in what we've been able to put together so far. Of course, our goal is $100,000, and we still have 1 month to try to achieve that. So, everybody, this also is an expression of taking responsibility, and I think it's also an expression of commitment, recommitment, and faith and purpose here in the month of Elul, that as we intensify our own introspection and soul searching and look toward how we can improve our own selves and be better people and be better citizens and better members of our communities, that we have to keep in mind that there's a big piece missing in the entire tapestry here, and that is the Holy Temple. And it behooves each and every one of us to do what we can to help change the reality and bring the Holy Temple back into our lives. And so here's something that you can do, very doable. It's a Temple Institute's Indiegogo campaign. You can find it on our Facebook page, on our website. You can go to Indiegogo and find Build the Third Temple campaign. So I encourage everybody to keep it in mind, check it out, and if you're up for it, then be part of it.
Yitzchak,
Rabbi,
there's so many things in this, so many concepts in this week's Torah portion that I think are crying out to us regarding our current state of affairs. And like always, when we study Torah with an eye to looking at the message for now that Hashem is giving us, because we're not studying history, we're not studying something ancient, but we're studying the unfolding stories of our own lives, the messages are very clear. One of the themes in this week's Torah portion has to do with a situation in which Israel is going out to war. And what happens in chapter 20 of the book of Deuteronomy is you go out to battle against your enemy, you see horse and chariot, a people more numerous than you, you shall not fear them, for Hashem your God is with you, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. It shall be that when you draw near to the war, the Kohen shall approach and speak to the people. Now, there's a Kohen here, he has a special function. He's called the Kohen who's anointed for battle.
Mm-hmm.
And he prepares the people spiritually for their battle, because every time Israel goes to battle, it's for Hashem. Even though recently there was a whole controversy in the army here because a commander had the audacity to say that very thing. We
Mm-hmm.
spoke about that a number of weeks ago. So this Kohen, he's called the Kohen who's anointed for battle. In verse 3, he shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, you are coming near to the battle against your enemies. Let your heart not be faint. Do not be afraid. Do not panic. And do not be broken before them. For Hashem your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you with your enemies to save you. And then we have this really interesting idea here regarding those whom the Torah considers unqualified to fight. And I've spoken about this before, and I want to mention it again because I think it's one of the deepest concepts that we've ever taught, and it's from the Holy Arizal. It's a very mystical idea here that the Torah is alluding to. But what's going on here? Okay, verse 5 says, "The officers shall then speak to the people, saying, 'Who is the man who has built a new house and has not inaugurated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the war, and another man will inaugurate it. And who is the man who has planted a vineyard and not redeemed it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the war, and another man will redeem it. And who is the man who has betrothed a woman and not married her? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the war, and another man will marry her.'" So the officers get up and they speak to all the people and they say, listen, there's three categories here of people who have an exemption. If you have recently built a house but you haven't yet inaugurated it, if you have recently planted a vineyard but it hasn't been redeemed yet, that happens in the fourth year, or if you have betrothed a woman but you haven't married her yet, all of you go home now, you're exempt, you have a prior commitment, and it wouldn't be right if you die and another man takes your place. This is your labor and you should sow the fruit of your labor. Go home and do those things. You're exempt. And then the officers shall continue speaking to the people and say, "Who is the man who is fearful and faint-hearted?" And by the way, the commentary on the verse is what the allusion is to a person who's fear and faint-hearted because of his own sins. And as he doesn't have self-confidence because he knows that he doesn't have so many merits because he hasn't been such a good boy. "Who is the man who is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return to his house, and let him not melt the heart of his fellows like his heart." When the officers have finished speaking to the people, the leaders of the legion shall take command at the head of the people. So what's going on here is actually on a simple level that the Torah is very compassionate and very understanding, and basically is covering for the guy who's a coward, for whatever reason, whether it's because he has the integrity to realize that he doesn't have the merit because he's been a spiritual mess-up, whatever, or he's just afraid. Let's say that's just a simple interpretation. It's just he's not ready to go out into battle. But he, if the officer would call out and say, "Okay, who's the chickens now?" I mean, that's not very nice, right? So instead, they say, there could be hundreds of people here, I don't know, thousands out of hundreds of thousands, who might be betrothed to a woman. In those days, they used to do the betrothal first and wait a long time before the wedding. Or you might have planted a vineyard, or you might have built a new house, and you didn't get to enjoy that yet. So go home. And also, by the way, whoever is like chicken. So then when everybody gets up and walks away, the people who are faint-hearted, they're mingling amongst the others, and you don't know. So the Torah is covering for them. It's very, very sweet. The Torah is giving them an excuse to slip away unnoticed. But the deeper level that I alluded to, that we learn from the Holy Arizal, the deeper mystical explanation of this is as follows. It's that we have to get these people out of there, especially the people that are faint-hearted, because whoever is negative, whoever is fearful, even they're fearful of their own sins, but they're fearful, they act as a negative force amongst the soldiers, and that's what it means that they shouldn't melt the hearts of their brethren, because what he explains is that the way that it works is that if a person is negative, he draws upon himself negativity. So this guy that's there, he's going to be like a wick drawing down disaster. And that's a bad influence. So better he should be gone, and everyone there should be completely focused, like-minded, and strong. Now, if we weren't talking about a wartime situation, but we just wanted to use this as a metaphor for everyday life, there's a deep lesson here for everybody, and that is which the Torah really teaches, that what you think is what will be. Yes, we do believe that. We actually believe that you can have a very positive influence on the outcome of a situation by projecting faith in Hashem and positivity. And the opposite is also true. So here in a situation where we're going to be fighting for the land of Israel, and we need every merit, and it's very, very holy. We can't afford to have any negativity. How amazing to be learning this week. How amazing. I'm shaking from the incredible poetic justice and wry irony of the Holy One, blessed be He, in arranging this Devar Torah, these words in this week's Parsha, because as I mentioned very briefly, one of the major public discourses that is facing the nation is this fact that we all realize, good God, there's something wrong here. We're like allergic to victory. We're like worried about winning, and therefore we're contorting ourselves. Oh, good news. We read today, the United States is working with to get a UN brokered ceasefire. Guess what? These ceasefires, what they do is they give Hamas a little bit more time to create more booby traps, to relocate their launchers in more schools and more hospitals, and to rewire and re-booby trap all the houses, and to replenish their stock of armaments. You know what? The only way out of this is a complete and total victory. Whatever that means, I don't have to explain that. I'm not the Prime Minister of Israel. Those who know, and they have the ability to do it, and they know exactly how to win, but they're afraid to win. And you know what? It's no coincidence that this week, as opposed to the beginning of this whole operation, right after the kidnapping of the 3 boys, may Hashem avenge their blood, Netanyahu's popularity has plummeted in the polls. And frankly, I do not know how he can look in the faces of the people who live in the southern part of this country, where the app on my phone is going off several times every few minutes. Several times every few minutes, the amount of missiles that are falling and that are wreaking havoc, and every one of them is supposed to be killing, like the 4-year-old child that was killed 2 days ago, like the house that was hit, a direct hit in Ashkelon last night. Every one of them is supposed to be killing. And you know what? At the end of the parsha, we have this. Yitzchak mentioned the unsolved murder, the axed heifer, where there's a body that's found. And the elders of the city, they're responsible. They're responsible because they didn't provide a proper send-off for this person. They didn't give him a proper escort. That's the deeper interpretation, one of them, right? So they do this ceremony, and they speak up and they say, our hands have not spilled this blood, and our eyes did not see. Again, it's like knocking my breath away to read these verses this week. Can Netanyahu look at these families in Ashdod and Ashkelon and in the entire Gaza belt, Gaza envelope of all the dozens of communities that live under this threat every single day, not to mention the fact that, yes, rockets are being fired towards Jerusalem and Tel Aviv also, but that's not the point. There are people every single moment that are in harm's way. Can he look at them in the eyes and can he say, our hands have not shed this blood, our eyes did not see? He is responsible. And the army knows what to do, but there's this problem. It's a serious problem. It's a Jewish problem. It's the elephant in the Jewish problem. It really is. Why can't we just win like we're supposed to? It's just absolutely incredible what's going on here. And I see it so strongly in the beginning of chapter 20, when Israel goes to war, about that anointed Kohen who speaks to the people. And maybe even the reason why he brought up the categories of the vineyard and the house and the betrothed man is just to cover the one who simply shouldn't be there because he's afraid and he's going to ruin it for everyone else. And that is the idea here. We can't be afraid. You are bringing negative energy into the situation by the very fact that you don't seem to want to be ready to win. There's nothing wrong with winning. There's nothing wrong with absolutely decimating the enemy. And there's all this talk about how the IDF is the most moral army in the world, and that is absolutely true, and there's never been a truer statement. And, it's staggering to send hundreds of thousands of SMSs, to call hundreds of thousands of cell phones and tell people to please get out of the way.
Isn't that spamming?
And all the things that they do to go out of their way to try and protect the civilians that are in harm's way, because Hamas cynically manipulates their own people and uses them as human shields and threatens them if they're leaving. And by the way, during the past few days, they've been executing so-called collaborators with Israel. Who knows how many of their own they're butchering every day, right? But the point is, here we have another interesting idea in this week's Torah portion is the cities of refuge. The cities of refuge are for a person to go to if he accidentally kills someone. The Torah is so moral. The Torah is so concerned with protecting a person that had no intention whatsoever of killing someone, that sends them away to a city where they have diplomatic immunity from the relatives of this person that they killed, right? So let me ask you a question. How do we define morality? Everybody defines morality and tries to explain how the IDF has moral high ground, because we're so concerned about protecting the civilians of our enemy, the civilians of our enemy. But as it's been pointed out, Yitzchak, the real morality dictated by the Torah for the IDF should be first and foremost that we protect our own soldiers, that we protect our own children, who are our soldiers. And if we were concerned about protecting our own children, our own soldiers, we would be doing this entire thing differently. So again, from the very beginning of appointing the officers and the judges in your gates, that everything has to be according to the fear of heaven, according to Torah law, according to the compassion and the understanding of the Almighty, from the idea of the King of Israel who guides his people with the Torah. You know what's going to be happening next year on the Torah calendar? In the intermediary days of the Festival of Sukkot, at the conclusion of the Shmita year. We're only beginning the Shmita, the sabbatical year now, but at the conclusion, there's the ceremony of Hakel that's described later in the book of Deuteronomy, where the king of Israel is commanded to gather the entire nation and to read to them from the Torah. The king goes around clutching the Torah. That's the king of Israel. And there's no two-state solution there, and there's no Gaza Strip, which is some sort of hostile enclave in the middle of the land of Israel, which is dominated by people that have a charter which calls upon routing out every Jew from behind every rock and killing him. There's something very, very wrong with this picture, and so many of these ideas are addressed right here in Parshat Shoftim. The anointed priest calls out, if you're afraid, don't be here now. Don't influence us negatively. We have to go out to battle, and we have to win now. Don't be afraid of winning.
And as we are wont to say, and I guess it's up to me to say it, Rabbi, as goes the Temple Mount, so goes the rest of the land of Israel. And everything you just described now about this hostile enclave where we have this fear of winning and of taking over and of bringing Torah light into there, it's the exact same syndrome which affects us concerning the Temple Mount, in which we, for some reason, think that protecting the rights and sensitivities of Muslims and allowing them to heckle and harass and threaten Jewish worshippers on a Temple Mount somehow bespeaks our morality, when we, at the very same time, of course, deny our own people, our own Jewish worshippers who go up to the Temple Mount according to Torah law in order to perform the commandment of Marah Mikdash, of showing reverence for God in the place of His holy temple. We deny them their right. It's the exact same problem. It's the exact same failure to appoint God-fearing judges in our gates, because a God-fearing judge would not stand for this. So, again, it all comes back to the Temple Mount, to the Holy Temple. And, okay, so we're obsessed, we're insane, we're crazy, but it does not negate the fact that
we're right.
That we're right. And that, you know, again,
I'm crazy because we talk about the Temple Mount.
And we can go into Gaza and we can defeat them. We can, like you said, we can defeat them, and we can clean up that mess, and we can bring our people back into Gaza and give them back their lands and properties that were taken from them. But if we don't, at the same time, retake the Temple Mount and reinstitute justice and the light of Torah into what transpires in the Temple Mount, then what have we done?
So of course you're referring to the words of the poet laureate of Israel, the national poet Ori Tzvi Greenberg, who wrote that whoever controls the Temple Mount controls the entire land. But I think that that's a Torah concept. I think he got that from the depths of the Torah. And you, Yitzchak, posted earlier this week on our Facebook page a comment based on an article that appeared on Arutz Sheva, Israel National News, regarding the Minister of Internal Security, Yitzchak Aharonovich, who is no friend of yours, whom you have no limits to showing contempt for. And your point about that article was that Yitzchak Aharonovich came out very strongly against the government's policy of not coming out strongly enough against Hamas. But what about the Temple Mount, where Hamas has basically taken over? He's not doing anything about that.
As the Minister of Internal Security, it's his responsibility to do something about. That's it. There's the music. Chodesh Tov to everybody. This new month of Elul, this final month of preparation, getting ready for the new year. We wish everybody a very, very good and soulful month. Thanks for being with us. Temple Talk.